Yo, what up? All right, so in this episode, we are running out, or I am running out, to look at a couple more potential projects in my neck of the woods, actually, this time. So I'm driving out to the first property. Both of them look a little worse for wear, but we'll see when we get there. Gonna meet Dr. Matt out there as well, because these potentially could be, one of these could be for him. So kind of killing two birds with one stone, as they say. So I'm gonna roll up on these properties. We'll do the walkthrough and see what we got. All right, I actually did a quick walk around outside first, just like we always talk about, outside in, top down kind of inspection stuff. It's a good lot, but all the lots in this area are cool because they're deep with the ability to build ADUs off the back of the property if you want. So right now I'm just gonna kind of take a little quick tour, kind of wander through. It's a small little miner's cabin house, like a lot of them are around here. Just see what layout is, condition of the home itself as is now, kind of keep my eyes open for things that I can see as potential problems. And like we do every time, we want to walk through it. I'm trying to get most of that done before Dr. Matt gets here. It's an interesting house. These houses over here are pretty interesting. I think the cool history behind them is something that's appealing. The old town feel, but at the same time you can see, again, I can touch the ceiling, right? So the ceiling's probably about a little under 7 feet, that's my guess. Super low ceilings. That has to do with, again, these little tiny additions that were done on these homes way back, turn of the century kind of stuff, and then slowly been modified throughout the last 100 or so years. So that's the kind of thing you're gonna get with these homes, but it's gonna be interesting to see what you can actually do with them, because in order to get this stuff back, we're gonna have to rip everything out of here to get that vaulted pitch back in the roof. It can be tricky to do some of that because you're up against modern day building codes. So as far as like getting roof insulation to hit that R49 value, that's gonna be tricky. I'm just looking at all the ceiling heights in here and all the little add-ons they've done, because the original home was really just the front space here. As we walk through this door, this is the original back of the house. So you can see how tiny these houses were. This has been cut out at some point. The old cellar's been wrapped in, so it's now a basement of some level. It's definitely a rental. I'm guessing the tenants had left pretty recently. It's got a lot of, all the flooring's got to be taken out. You've got, again, you can see these little tiny roofs, so we're getting really, really low as we get out to the front of the house. I'm almost having to duck. Okay, so you're working with these, again, really awkward miners' cabins in this area. So that's what you're up against for a pretty penny price point, because you're paying for the location of where everybody wants to be right now. It's a happening in Old Town. Again, the lots are nice. A lot of these homes that I've looked at before, we get into that situation like we looked at the last one, and it could be potential tear down. You get into that 50-50 scenario. This one's not that way, but you're working with the same types of scenarios. Kitchen's livable, but ceilings are super low. Laundry's in the back with another bathroom. So let's start inspecting before Dr. Matt gets here. I'm gonna start looking at outside, electrical, all that fun stuff. Okay, so we just came down, basically rebuilt cellar stairs. We're actually in the original cellar of the home, the original footprint, the foundation. All these walls in here. This is basically a load wall coming down the middle of the house, the original middle of the house. Now we're into what's basically a finished crawl space, and I can actually stand up in most of this. So some of the ceiling height down here is better than it is actually upstairs in the actual living portion of the home. So things I'm looking at, I'm looking at issues with ductwork. We've got flex attached to hard pipe. It's obviously not even attached right now. Got a furnace that needs to go, it's super old. Seeing some modifications on the stem wall itself. So those are the things you want to start looking at, just weird looking stuff. duct work running through for the crawl space up into the house itself is all flex. So that has to actually be changed out to hard pipe, which is what this is right here. I'm gonna keep taking a stroll. Okay, those are our electrical panel, 100 amp service. That's about all you're gonna need on a little tiny house. But as you can see, the draw of these properties in Old Town are the big lots. So most of them will allow an ADU. So you could literally put a garage back here and the living space above. Do have some lower running electrical and data wires coming in. There's Dr. Matt, he's very curious. Miners cabins. What do you think, Dr. Matt? So there's the last, here's the last tie-in. This is the stuff we'll be looking at. So like this roof, so the original house starts about right here and cuts off right in front of the sliding glass door. Then they did a little tiny addition, probably 60-ish years ago. And then the last one, where they ran these rafters out, I'm gonna guess they, you know, it was stick-built roof at this point too. And you can see the hump right here, where they didn't get everything flushed up. So all the awkwardness that you run into between the interior and the exterior work that has to be done, you can see why someone with this size house would come in and buy the lot, knock the house down, rebuild everything. One of the options that we've discussed in the past, and that Dr. Matt, is this guy gonna deliver to us? You got a package coming? Yeah. So one of the things we discussed is literally out here, you could build an ADU and you could live in the ADU while you do construction or tear down and rebuild a new home here. So you don't actually have to leave the property. That's the benefit and flexibility you have on lots like this. So that's one option you can think about if you wanted to do both. That way you're not paying rent and a mortgage somewhere, and you can get more flexibility on some of the loans too. So that's all you have to look for in these. There's not much to see in 700 square feet, especially when most of it is just add-on goofy, awkward space going from one spot to another. But again, front of the yard, the neighborhoods are always cool. This street actually dead ends right at the base here, and I believe, and maybe Dr. Matt can tell me, that's the old Wanakas that own that?
I think so.
So they still own all the farmland that's out there. Yeah. So nothing is gonna be built on that for a hell of a long time, if ever. Which,
open space.
Yeah, it's all open space. So it deems to be a quiet neighborhood for the most part, but very popular area. So after that, I think, I mean, you're looking at stuff that's like, do you want to deal with it or not kind of scenario. And the problem with this area is the price you're going to pay. Again, it's high demand, and it's where everybody wants to be. And with the lot availabilities and flexibilities, you're going to pay a higher price. So that's the hard part with trying to figure these out, is do you stay and then kind of remodel as you go? In this scenario, I would say this is definitely one of those scenarios where you'd want to build your ADU, live in it, yeah, and then tear this thing down. And so you're basically working through conventional and construction on one end, and then you go a second project that's already flipped over. You can now do your second construction project while you're living there. You're not paying rent somewhere else. And then you can go recoup that by rental income once the project up front's done. That's the kind of project this would be. So we're gonna go look at the next one here in a minute and see what this has in store, because this one, the next one's a little intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so we saw the first one. That's a scenario like I was discussing with Dr. Matt, where I'm really making sure I don't get hit right now. Cool. Where he could actually move into that or existing home temporarily to build the ADU, which would be, you know, if you do it with shipping containers or modular construction, it'd only be about a 4-month turnaround time on the project. Then he could move into the ADU while you tear down that house and rebuild the house on the front of the property for the actual structure. And then that would be obviously his primary residence. And he would move back into that house once it's built. And now he's got an ADU he can rent out. So then he can recoup some of that income off the original investment. That's the scenario that would work for either a flip or for Dr. Matt's you know, positioning. And that's kind of what we're looking at. This next house we're gonna look at, I have a feeling has more structural issues they've tried to cover up based on just broker comments. So we're gonna take a look at that and see if this is one that we could do for him as far as a remodel, or if it's something I can snatch up from underneath him and flip it. So we'll just see what the scenario looks like and go from there. All right, make sure I don't get lost here. Okay, so we swung into the next property down the street. Actually ran into the owner on our way in, which was cool. So I barely chatted with him, but this house is a little bit bigger. It's got a detached garage to it, which he currently supposedly is renting out. And I think the listing said it's $550 a month is what he's getting. And it's a pretty big garage. It looks like, we'll go look at it in a minute. It looks like a 2-car garage. However, I kind of wonder if at $550 a month, if he's actually getting shop space usage out of it. And Dr. Matt is not a real handy guy, but he can certainly park his car in there. That's the scenario that you can see kind of throughout this area anyway, and that's why we're kind of looking at these. There's already basically a garage on the back. So when we go look at that, I'll explain again how these lots are deep enough to allow a situation to do an ADU like that. So front of the house, front door, again, we've got, you know, everything's for short people on these old miners' cabins. They're just small. There's definitely been some, like I was saying on the way over, some structural situation of some sort. I'm trying to get my eyes on it, but as you walk through these homes, what you want to do is you're walking and feeling with your feet too, and you can actually feel, and Dr. Matt has too, you can feel where they've put in new floors here, but underneath we've got definite movement. There's some heaving out in the corner. So anytime you feel undulations in the floor, you want to start asking questions. And if there's an ability to get to a crawl space or a basement, get down there, start looking on the concrete walls if they're exposed, look for signs of cracking like we've been talking about. And then you want to actually, before you move much further, again, you want to get your engineer in here to kind of take a peek at it. The inspection report will bring that stuff up, but until an engineer actually gets their eyes on it to tell you what it is, then you don't really know, again, is it worth it? Is it a go, no go situation? So looks like we've got one bathroom here. And again, I feel like this is a livable house in the time being, maybe even a little bit longer term. Kitchen, you know, it's been a rental for a long time. Clearly no one's living here. Some of this is not just bad tile, this is actually movement here. So this is actually the countertop and the backsplash that's actually pulled away from itself. And that's a sign of movement in the home too. So I'm gonna start looking outside when we get there and see if I can see any more signs of what is actually happening with the structure. As I walk through the house, I'm gonna keep looking at different areas of the walls, especially around door jambs where there's openings, and you'll have, you know, headers and beams in here. If it's a load wall, that's areas you'll start to see cracking. So like this wall is actually load bearing, and I can feel a lot of plaster that's been covered up. There's actually a hump right here, okay? And so you can actually see this gap changes too. See how it's small here and then it gets bigger? That's because the wall is turning in on itself, and that's movement as well. So they've definitely plastered over this to hide some of this. Some of the casings cracking again where they have caulking. So there's been movement. Now it's just a situation of why. Sometimes it's very minor, like I've talked about before. Sometimes it's major. So again, you can see gapping in the floors, right at the base trim. It's been some pretty good movement. And then I think I'm gonna try and wander upstairs and take a peek here. Since this is the second story. I like how they have we've got a diverter here. That's nice. You got heat in your stairs, bud. Oh, that's gonna get broken in 2 seconds. Dumb. You don't put that in the stairs. I mean, obviously, you guys probably know that. They don't put that in the stairs. So as we get up here, this is like the house of horrors. It's like sloped. It's one of those like fun houses you go to. Yeah, right. I'm literally falling this way. Man, now the more I'm up here, the more I'm kind of like, maybe not. So here's the second bathroom, which in the pictures look kind of pimpy. Great things are. Oh, so here's a good look. And that's is that a keyless here? Yeah. Okay. So check this out. See how straight things are. Got a little taper on this. This is the chimney. All right, so that's tapered up. This chimney is actually falling that way. And downstairs, that kind of falls in line with what's happening with the floors downstairs. The house is settling that direction, and it has for quite a while. But you've got a lot of stuff to fix inside in order to actually true up the floors. Downstairs was one thing. Upstairs, that could get to a big number because you're literally having to tear everything out to your floor joists, and then at the very minimum, you're coming back with 3/4 plywood of some sort, and you're actually going to run sleeper or basically shims, for a simpler explanation, to level out the floor enough to make it feel like it's not falling on itself. That's a bigger project than originally I had seen downstairs. So this is another one of those. You've got the option to build the ADU. Maybe you do that, move into it, tear the house down, and live from there. Stairs aren't to code, my God. All right, so there's the back of the house. You can see where they framed in. You've got some actual slope, not intentionally, on that part of the roof. So again, the house is moving this way, right? So we're trying to figure out why. But even when you rectify it with either civil management or structural work, you still have to go back in and fix all of the issues as far as leveling the house up, first floor and second floor. That's a bigger project. And one you got to think about, what's the original number? You know, what are you gonna pay for it up front? And then can you make the ARV suffice on the cost of construction at the end? So we're gonna walk into, this is the garage he was renting for $550. And Dr. Mack's looking for a light, but I can tell you right now, bub, there aren't any lights. Because here's your light box. Oh, yeah. So whatever he's renting was definitely for storage. There was no one doing a workshop in here of any kind, although it's enough space. Maybe I could come over and use it. 2-car garage though. One guy. So this is the footprint you can work within if you do a new ADU. Again, you could tear this down and rebuild it, or again, you can walk through a scenario where you're going to remove your roof and your trusses, and you could build a second story. All you want to do is you have to determine what is the actual foundation. That's talking with your structural engineer. And will that current foundation carry a second story load? So that's stuff you can consider using part of the garage versus tearing the whole thing down. The setbacks are big. There's the alley. So you can see your setback on that oversized 2-car. That's probably, we're a good 7 feet from the property line, assuming that's close to the property line on this fence. That's all the stuff you want to go back after you look at this property and research. So you pull it up with the assessor's website. You can call the building department. They'll give you information. That's all stuff you want to look at. And again, setback on this side is even more. So you've got even more room if you probably wanted to, man, to build this even bigger. Yep. So just from an understanding of how water flows and gravity works, your high point's here, right? And in Colorado, we get snow and we definitely get rain. But everything, including the flat work, is pointing at the house. You see how they've rebuilt this curb up here? That was done a while back because that's exactly what's happening. So your settle is, it's clearly water management and some hydrostatic pressure that's causing this house to move.
Yeah, all the water's flowing that
It's
way.
all going up, and it runs down your stem wall into the footing, and then that starts to actually push down it. And you've got pressure against that, so you have a freeze-thaw effect happening, right? You have water pressure against that stem wall, and it pushes against it, right? And so when that pushes against it, it can pull away and drop at the same time. And that's what happens. It's not bad framing up there, it's just moving. Okay, so we looked at house number 2. You guys got to see all the stuff that you can kind of, I don't know, investigate. You're definitely investigating when you're looking at projects. Both of those were also for a potential for Dr. Matt as far as a primary residence. But what he's looking to do is build ADU on the property so he can rent it out and then get some rental income right there on his property, cuts down his mortgage payment, and he's making money on something, and it's very low maintenance, and he can literally be his own property manager at that point. So that's why these lots are so intriguing. This guy doesn't want to let me go. Thank you. Because of that scenario. Just exactly that. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna run some numbers. I'm gonna try and figure out what's going on with these two different houses. I also noticed that the house next door to the second property we looked at was a for sale by owner. So that's potentially another good scenario even for me to pick up as a flip. I like FSBOs because they're basically off-market deals. You know, it's not on the MLS. The owner's trying to sell it themselves, and you may be able to kind of swing a really good deal, help that person out, and get something better than on market. So I'm gonna go make some phone calls. I'm gonna get on the computer and do some number crunching for Dr. Matt and for myself, and then just see scenarios on what can happen with both those properties. Both of them need a lot of work. The first one is gonna be a tear down regardless. The second one, yeah, you could live there, but there are some structural issues you got to go and deal with. I think less so than a lot of people are going to try and dig into on, if that makes sense. But at the same time, you got to deal with it. So there is some work at both houses for sure, regardless, and that's a number you got to put together. So we're going to go figure out ARV. We're going to work on some loan product stuff in the meantime as well, and then we'll see what we come up with and go from there. So I'm gonna go jump on the computer. You guys can see how I do this. Maybe one of them works, we'll see. All right. Okay, so here we are back in the office, and we've pulled up the first property that we've looked at in the MLS. So here we are. This is that little greenhouse, cute little greenhouse, with the 7-foot ceilings, well, like 6'8" maybe. A lot of issues you guys saw when we walked through it. The lot is basically the pulling point for these types of properties in Old Town. So here's the trick. First thing you want to do is you want to get in the MLS. You want to make sure that it is still active. If you don't have the ability to get on MLS, or you don't have an agent working for you and you're looking for these on your own, well, guess what you do? You call the listing agent and you ask them, is it still active is the main thing. You don't want to be working on a property and doing a bunch of homework here in the office when this property has 12 offers on it, it's under contract, right? That's a waste of time. So you want to verify that it's still active. Every MLS has a different rating as far as what it would mean to be under contract. Make sure that you're still playing with a property that's active on the market. Then you can start doing your due diligence on working through our little CMA and ARV situations that you guys have been learning about, because here's our active price at $365. That's our list price. We have to assess whether that price is accurate. And if it is accurate, if it's competitive, do we think there's going to be a lot of offers on it? What do we think we can actually get the property for? Again, remember that you make your money on these projects on the front end on your purchase, buying the property. The less you pay, the more money you can make at the back, because you're going to be able to control your budget and you're going to be able to control what you're going to do with the property, because you're going to assess it before you get started. That's why we're here. Okay, so we have information on the MLS as to what type of property it is. It says here, you guys saw it, so you can start seeing how the brokers will manipulate on how they can get people to come see the home and work their way in. So we actually have some decent information, not all of it fully accurate, but we can work off of this from the listing comments. It says it needs a little TLC. Well, anytime you see that, that's a good play to go out and look at the property, because that means it's a potential flip. It needs work. It says the current owner purchased the property to build a duplex on the lot, and they met with the city and their architect when they purchased the home, and were told the city didn't see an issue doing a duplex on the lot. So their play when they bought it, the owners that have it now, was to buy it, scrape it, build a duplex. There is definitely more money in doing a project that way if you have the ability to do it per zoning, because you can sell each side of the duplex at basically a rate or a price that's going to be 3/4 to maybe 80% of what a single family home would be. So in the end, you're selling two properties instead of one, which means you can potentially make a lot more money. That is something to consider on this property. Like we talked with Dr. Matt, there is potential to live in this home while he builds the ADU in the back, then move into the ADU, scrape this property,
and build the home that he wants while he's living in the ADU. That is one potential move he could make if he was to purchase this property. If I was to grab this property, I don't need to live there because it's an investment. I'm going to build a spec home of some sort. I'm going to build an ADU on the property. This is a flip project. So what we have to do is we're trying to assess, is it potentially in a situation where we can remodel the home and build the ADU, or is it basically a tear down? And then we're building brand new for everything. That's what I'm going to go through on this one real quick with you guys. Okay, so moving forward on this, they never pursued getting any kind of designation to move forward, and now their plans have changed, making this a great opportunity for the next buyer. You can always smell a little BS here if someone changes their mind. What happened? Did they run out of money? Do they not have money? Or did the city truly say you can't do a duplex? Well, that's just simply calling the city and finding out the zoning if you don't know how to read a zoning code that's basically in here. And you can get that information through property details on the all that information is public. So through the assessor's website, you can get the zoning information, then from there decipher what the zoning means, or simply just call the building department, and the building department can give you more information. You can even call the assessor's office too. They tend to be a little bit slower depending on where you live, but the building department will tell you for sure because they're the ones that are going to approve the future construction project anyway. So they're going to know. All right, so verify that this information is correct. You never know what brokers are saying, where they get the information, yada, yada. So it says oversized lot. We already knew that. Also in here was very interesting. It says $1 million plus homes being sold 2 blocks away. Now, we're going to get into that in a minute, and I'm going to show you kind of the stretch here from the broker as well. Is that a potential move? Yeah. Is it a great neighborhood? Yeah. Are there $1 million homes being built 2 blocks away? No, because nothing has actually sold over $1 million within 2 blocks. I'll show you the sold comparables in here, and that's what you have to work off first when you're looking at these types of projects, okay? So, like I said, I'm going to pull this over real quick. And this is basically the neighborhood. So we are on Geneseo right here. Which is right here, okay? These little yellow dots are all sold properties. So again, pulling up Zillow, because everybody has access to Zillow, you can use this as a starting point for your comparable market analysis. All you have to do is type in your address of the subject property you're looking for, type that in, and then select sold on here from all the different options that they have for sale and what we're working on. You guys have seen it in the past. Click on sold, okay? With this address, we'll pull up the neighborhood that it's in. And you want to be, making sure you're working off of a half of a mile to a mile radius maximum when you're doing your sold and active comparables, okay? This is how you're going to determine, again, your ARV or your after repair value to make sure that this project is viable. So now all these little yellow dots are going to show us all the homes in the area that have sold at any point that they have record for. So again, you want to work off last 3 months. And then if you can't find enough, which means 3 to 6 properties, if you can't find 3 to 6 properties, then you need to work 6 months back. And if you can't do it then, you have to start questioning why things haven't sold. It could be an up-and-coming neighborhood, sure, but we're going to make sure that this is desirable, and you should know that going in. And potentially you could go back to 9 months out, but that really depends on the neighborhood. I would be very cautious at that point going back 9 months. Start with 3 months, see where you go. So again, working off Zillow, we can kind of pick and choose. We have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath subject property. In the MLS, it says, what did it say? It said 1,872 square feet, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. No, that is not accurate. It's no more than 900 square feet. And if you see total finish, they're actually counting the crawl space. If you guys remember us walking through the crawl space, that is not finished square foot. There's your above grade square footage. Okay, so it says basement. It's not a basement. So 936 square feet is what we're working off of, not 1872. All right, so going back again to Zillow, we're going to work off less than 1,000 square feet on the home, 2-bedroom, 1-bath currently. Now we got to think, are we going to keep it as a 2-bed, 1-bath and try and fix ceiling heights, remodel the kitchen? Are we going to try and add another bathroom? Those types of things I'm thinking about on this property. The ADU, if you're going to do a project like this, you're going to see is going to stretch that price to another whole dynamic, and it probably wouldn't make sense unless you're going to scrape the home up front. So again, we're looking at 2-bedroom, 1-bath comparables. I want to know what those are going for. That's a 3-bed, 3-bath. And all you have to do is hold the cursor over these to see what we're looking at. That's not going to work. 3-bedroom, 4-bath, 3-bedroom, 3.25 bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. What's over here? Oh, here's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. This is on the other side of East Baseline, which is busy. That's the closest we're getting so far. A lot of these say units on here as we're looking at this. You probably have noticed. That is because these are duplexes or row homes. Obviously, it's allowed because I've seen other ones. I know the zoning, but that's something you need to check with. So the play could be potentially tearing that down and building a duplex. Now, for most flippers out there, as we've talked about in the past, that's not going to be the best option because unless you're a builder or a licensed general contractor, you're going to get into a bigger cost and probably in over your head. You got to be careful with that. Stick with existing footprint, especially on your first 5 to 7 projects. Okay, let's click on this. 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Again, it's on the other side of East Baseline, so we're pushing that half-mile radius right now, just so you guys understand location, okay? So we're going to scroll through this, get a quick idea of this property if we can. Year built 1915. It's got a garage and a carport on about 0.3 acres. That's a little bit bigger than the lot we were looking at, which was about 1/4 acre, so fairly comparable. Again, you can still do the ADUs on these as well because I know that. Just make sure you understand your neighborhood. Sold for $200,000 back in July of 2019. So we're stretching that, obviously, with your sale point. There's not much other information on this one. So really, that's our closest one so far, and we're not getting a whole lot of information. 760 square feet, so slightly smaller. Zillow does give you estimates, 3.25. That's something we would work through, but you can see if even a Zillow is saying that, I'm telling you the property we're looking at is overpriced as is. And most likely the property we're looking at, as we've been discussing, is on a land value only because that house is questionable as far as living capacity. Has it been rented in the past? Yes. Are a lot of things to code as far as habitable space, ceiling height, size of bedroom, egress? No, they're not. So really, we're working off land value only on this house, okay? Here's another one that sold not that far away on Geneseo. And let's click on this one right here. This one sold of February of this year, so it's closer. We're still outside our 3-month range, but that's as close as we can get so far. You can see here, 220/20. Okay, so something I can actually do because I'm trying to determine, is this real? They even wrote in here, I think it's closer to 1,300 square feet. Yeah, try, this is your square foot. That's all you need to worry about. Don't overcomplicate it as a listing agent, okay? That's kind of a lesson to be learned too. If the assessor has the information, run off the assessor's website and run off their information. Don't try and be a hero here and try and stretch things. You can get caught with your pants down on some of this information. You don't want to be in that situation to explain why you wrote it in there. Don't get held liable for misleading information. I can go into the public records through my MLS, okay? So I can actually pull up owner information. This is public, and look at this. This is actually under an LLC, so that's smart for them as they bought it to do a duplex. To put it under an LLC, don't title it personally. Make it some sort of business entity, okay? I get all my tax information in here. I've got the actual square foot, the size of the lot. Everything that I need in here is right here. So last market sale, they bought it for $330,000. They paid too much for it at this point. Even back in 2018, they got bamboozled. I can see sales history on here. I can even see mortgage information. I'm not going to let you guys see that because I don't want it to be shown, but it does have mortgage history on here. That is actually public information if allowed to be shown. So I have all that stuff to work off of. I have an idea of what they're leveraged for, and I can use that to my benefit if needed. Again, this is information I'm going to have to use in order to make a final judgment on this property, okay? So at 365, I know it's overpriced regardless of what I want to do with it, whether it's remodel or scrape it and rebuild. Even Dr. Matt, I'm not letting him pay 365 for this. Someone may snatch it for that or more. It's a really crazy market right now here, but I will not run that number, okay? So you can see how we've gone through using MLS and Zillow, right, to start putting information together. This is really the starting point for what we get into. Once we've determined an actual after repair value, meaning we have to know what the project is going to be. Are we building ADU in a new home there? Are we remodeling it, etc.? So I have to determine what's the project. Is Dr. Matt going to buy it and live in it for 6 months, build an ADU, move into the ADU, then move back into the new home after he's built it? Those are all things to consider. So I'm kind of working this on two fronts: one as a realtor, two as an investor / builder, to determine what I'm going to do. If I was to buy this, I'm going to scrape that house. There's too much work in there to try and get it back to current code conditions. I'm going to end up spending more money trying to do that and work within a really restrictive footprint. I have the room to tear it down and build new. It's a longer project, but that is the way I'm going to go. So now, that being said, let's determine I've gotten to an actual ARV. I know what my project's going to be. I can then pull up my spreadsheet and run these numbers. So I have a breakdown, and again, this is on the website that I'm leaving up. I believe it's on Build Beyond Real Estate as well, but it will be on the Bailey Custom Homes website. That's a document you guys can go there and download, and you can actually use this spreadsheet that I've made to put down my costs for the project. And again, we've talked about how to assess this in the past, so go back and watch those other videos if you haven't, on how to determine an ARV and how to determine construction costs. Those will help you get through this spreadsheet, okay? But there's my spreadsheet. I'm going to get down to the grand total of the renovations, calculate what my loans will be based on who I'm talking to, as a bar an investor or a lender, and then I've got a complete total. That's going to run your total up here and show you what the rehab estimate's going to be and how much money you could potentially make, okay? Go ahead and use this spreadsheet. It's there for your use for free. Work through your numbers, and you will get to your project cost, and then you can say, is it still viable after everything's set in stone here to move forward? All right. So that is how you do an assessment. Let's go to the second property real quick. Okay, here's our second property here. And again, I'm going to look through this one very quickly. The list price is $400,000. It's been on the market 31 days. Now, in this market, that's a fairly long time. Most homes are getting offers within 7 to 10 days. Generally, if they're on the market for 30 days, they're about to close. They're not just sitting there. That would, if I knew it was about to close, this would not say active. This would say pending. Okay, so I know that's under contract in this MLS. Again, call the agent, ask what's going on with the property, get information through the MLS or your agent that you're working with on the buy side, if you are using somebody instead of working for yourself, and find out all the information you can on this property before you even put an offer in. Check on all the listing comments as you're running through this as well, okay? It said you guys could see that I was talking about the floors being pretty out of level. They were not true at all, which means they were out of level, and definitely, as we talked about, there was a lot of settling happening within that house. I think it's hydrostatic pressure, and civil engineering will take care of most of the water that's causing that house to move, but you still have a lot of work to do. That house could be gutted, reframed, floor joists could be fixed. Again, I think I would still tear down the garage and build a bigger ADU instead of just leaving it as a garage. But you could run that with Dr. Matt as well, where he could live in that house, build the ADU, move into the ADU while you scrape the house or remodel the house, and then move back into the main structure once it's done. That's a possibility. If I was to do this, this is a 50-50 kind of thing. I have to assess whether I want to tear this down or remodel what's in there. There's still a lot of work to be done in this house. I can tell you right now, on just overall off the top of my head costs to remodel it, to true the floors, to fix issues, civil engineering, and structural work, I'm at easily $125,000 on this house, probably more like 150 all day long. That doesn't include building a new ADU back there. My overall cost is gonna be over $200,000. At that point, I say that's a push, and I'm going to move on and tear the house down. I can tell you without even having to run through this spreadsheet that that's where I'm going to be. We're just kind of, every week we'll be running through properties, kind of determining, is it a go or no go? The first property for me is going to be a no-go unless I can get what my number looks like on that property, which is going to be sub $300,000. They're going to hold off on this for what we call a quote-unquote sucker, because somebody probably will snatch at that price. There's just not much on the market. They think it's fairly is the wrong word, barely livable. They may buy it to try and rent out to somebody because rents continue to go up, and there's not much as far as availability in rent as well around this area. So someone will jump on that. All right. That being said, this one's more promising to me because it's been on the market longer. I got to talk to the owner while I was there with Dr. Matt. We didn't get a ton of information. I didn't want to push him. He seemed a little bit busy, but I definitely can tell he is anxious to get rid of it. I have owner information in here. I'm not letting you guys see that, but same thing. I got my tax information. I can tell you when he purchased it, it was 1984. He bought it for $62,000. He's sitting on a buttload of equity, and good for him. This is why you invest in real estate, okay? So he's going to make a good chunk of change. I don't know if he owns other properties. I haven't checked in on that. I've got mortgage amounts in here, so I know where he stands on the history and when he last drew money on this, probably to do minimal work on it or use for other real estate investments. So I have information to work off of there. I also have information I can use in here. So I'm going to search this real quick and just take a quick peek at it. It pulls up in here. We've got information on this. Now, again, what we're going to do is I'm going to just close this out real quick. I'm going to do solds. Okay. So now we're back on to sold properties in the neighborhood. So this one actually is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 750 square feet. The subject property we're looking at right now is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and it's a 2-story. It is a bigger property. Again, there it is right there. We're looking at 1,250 square feet. So that's kind of what our CMA or our comparables need to look like, okay? So keeping that in mind, although that's really recent, that's not going to help us a whole lot. I want to keep looking around. Again, you can see there's not many available, but what's available, let's just check this out. 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,200 square feet. Sold in August of this year. Okay, so a block from downtown. That's very close to where the other place was. Oversized detached 2-car, just like the subject property we're looking at. Similar size lot. Not as many bedrooms, 1 less bathroom. Not as big a deal on the bath and bed. But again, we have a 2-story compared to a 1-story, so it's not the best comparable. It's sold, like I said, August 12th for $525. That blows my mind, actually. That's pretty expensive. But there's your market right now. Part of the deal with the subject property, this is where you got to understand sort of what you're looking at, is there's at least one of those bedrooms in the subject property that is not a real bedroom. So it's what they call, or a broker will say, non-conforming. That just means that's not a bedroom by code. It's not allowed. So it doesn't have proper egress. It's not big enough, and it doesn't have a closet. Okay. So really, they're listing it as if I can remember this property, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So looking at the 2 ones here, it's not as big a deal. This one sold for $349. I'm looking at this property more in the $350 range. That's probably what we're going to get to. This one's pushing the half-mile radius. So all of these are pretty small around here. Here's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. Now we're getting a little bit closer. Same street, just down the road a little bit. Sold for $429. Now, this is a home I know was built last year. Let's make sure I'm remembering correctly. Nope, 2011. It's a newer home. So this was built, let's see, 9 years ago. Okay. And then sold in December of 2019 for $439. So you can see that's a home that was built 9 years ago and sold for that price. The estimate is $449. Like I said, it's starting to confirm my bias that he's sub 400 for sure. I don't think he's as far off as the first property, but we're looking at getting it for $350 to $375. Again, construction costs. If I was to run back in here, I'm going to run through all the things that need to be done in here. I'm going to be at, like I said, $150,000 to $200,000 all day. Okay. So that's kind of my assessment of those two. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Next week we'll have another one popping up. I'll let you know the status of these as we move on. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please. Helps me get out this information and this free education for everybody. So hit that thumbs up, leave your comments below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, follow me on Instagram at Shane Bailey Builder. Appreciate you guys, appreciate all the support, and I'll have another one of these out next week. Thanks and see ya.